Welcome to The Vault at 201 North Broadway, podcast for innovators and problem solvers talking all things small business, entrepreneurship, and workforce development. Today's guest has an experienced history for fundraising for nonprofit organizations, a strong sense of community. He's one of our Better Off in Billings Ambassadors. He has a passion for arts and culture and love for travel, good food, and cultural experiences. It's with much excitement that we welcome Ryan Cremer to The Vault.
Billings is Montana's city,
where urban meets rural and residents experience the convenience of city amenities while enjoying a suburban lifestyle.
A vibrant community with a perfect mix of urban and rural amenities to fit any lifestyle. As a regional hub for education, oil and gas, healthcare, entrepreneurship, and agriculture, it's easy to excel here. If you have a dream, it's achievable in Billings.
It is amazing the number of residents who took the leap, made the move, and found that they truly are better off in Billings. It is real, not just a slogan. They found a community where the big sky is the limit, where people are ready to help, and where access to opportunities are plentiful. We have a network of great people ready to tell you all about life in Billings and what you might encounter here.
Come see why you're better off in Billings. Check us out at betteroffinbillings.org or find us on Facebook or Instagram at Better Off in Billings.
Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you for having me.
We're excited to have you. So tell us a little bit. We love kicking off our episodes, just diving into what people, like their background. Where'd you grow up? How'd you get to where you are today? So let's start with where you grew up.
So I'm born and bred here in Billings. I've had the opportunity to travel around quite a bit, as you mentioned, but lived in Billings up until middle school, back to Great Falls, back to Billings, Missoula, back to Billings. So I've boomeranged around. My father was a vice president for Albertsons. So when Buttery's was bought out, we moved to Great Falls, back to Billings, and then I'm a West High graduate and then a University of Montana graduate. Really, when I was thinking about where I wanted to be, Missoula is one of these places that you kind of fall in love with, especially in your college years. I landed a good job right out of college back in Billings. It's one of the things we talk about for Better Off in Billings, and truly getting a great job and an opportunity to buy a house here was the top of the list. Everyone always kind of wonders, like, how do you end up in philanthropy? How do you end up as a development director and working in nonprofit? And
you dream about it as a child.
Yeah, sincerely, right?
When that's what we want to know. Like, what was Ryan like as a child? Like, what were some of those things where you're like, now looking back, you're like, oh, I guess that makes sense.
It's hilarious because no one ever, when you get interviewed, right? Why do you want to do this? You want to be a baseball player or a space cowboy. No one ever says development director at a nonprofit. I've always had this niche for talking. If you've met me, I can talk and talk and talk and talk. And everyone knows that. And people that are listening are probably laughing because I don't have an off button usually. Going to college, I wanted to be a physician. I really thought long and hard about physical therapy. And I just didn't do well my freshman year. And
but wait. What attracted you to that? Like, you like people, you like talking, but like, what about that where you're like, oh, I could really be good at being a physician?
I wrestled my entire life, and as any wrestler knows, you reap what you sow, and I destroyed my body, my shoulders.
Your ears look great, though.
You
know what I mean? Sometimes, isn't it cauliflower ear thing?
I luckily drained them once, and then wore headgear. So I was a kid that was like 6th grade wearing headgear all the time. So I'm going to be the guy that's telling, like, hey, wrestlers, if you're listening, wear headgear, unless you really want to look like a wrestler, which most kids do.
Until later, and then they're like, oh, snap.
You can
my
look
ears
like,
are puffy.
That dude's a wrestler.
Yeah.
I had surgery at a young age on my shoulder. I had a great PT and thought that's something that would be really cool to do, working with athletes and having that personality and that personal connection. So I thought PT might be the way. And I just bombed, man. I was good in high school. I didn't really try that hard, and then went to college, and turns out you have to try hard. So I said gen eds might be the way to go. I fell in love with acting. and I was in a couple of plays in Missoula.
I can see that. I can see you being a really
Like,
good
tell
actor.
us some of the plays you were in. I'm
So the big
curious.
one that I can talk about is, it's called Out Under the Big Blue Sky. I'm going to give a big plug for Laramie Dean if he's going to be listening to this. Laramie was a director and producer in his grad school years, and he wrote a play about what it was like to be gay in Montana. And all of the characters were based on real people in Montana. And I happened to get an opportunity as an 18-year-old kid to portray a man named Cameron, and I fell in love with acting. And I thought, this is what I want to do. I'm going to be an actor. And I told my parents, I'm going to be an actor. And they kind of said, well, we're happy to support you and help you out, and maybe make that a hobby. And so I was like, I'm going to get my gen eds. I'm going to go into liberal studies. And the joke that we always have is, anyone who's gone into liberal studies is, well, what do you do with a liberal studies degree? You get a master's in liberal studies. Well, what do you do with a master's in liberal studies? Well, you get a doctorate in liberal studies. But the cool thing about that degree is it taught me like little bits about everything. Mm-hmm. So I've never felt like a fish out of water in any conversation, because I feel like I just have enough to carry a conversation.
Oh, that's awesome.
Has really led to that niche of being able to go be a development director. Just being able to talk. A lot of people, being even just in the spot like this, they're terrified to talk. I don't get in front of a group of people and have a shortcoming of things to say. I can go plug for things. I like being the center of attention. So development made sense. But I came back to Billings and still kind of had this passion for working with kids. Autism was kind of a background of mine, working in speech therapy programs in Missoula. I've worked at a couple different nonprofits that specialize working with children. CASA of Yellowstone County. I was a program director and love what CASA does. My wife and I were CASAs. My mom was a CASA. After that, I went to the museum. Luckily, Robin Peterson, who was really one of my mentors, saw something in me as a young kid and just said, I don't think we can teach this kind of thing, but we can teach you art. And at that time, I really had a passion for art. And
the Yellowstone Art Museum.
Yellowstone Art Museum. I should reiterate that. But yeah, I fell in love at the museum. I loved working there, and really kind of cut my teeth on fundraising, and really spent a good majority of my time fundraising there. But deep down, it was kind of, I really want to fundraise for something that I'm truly passionate about. And it's always been really the less fortunate. Passion projects of my wife and I had an opportunity to take over as the lead development director at Family Service, and shy of 2 years later, the executive director now.
Which, congratulations to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been 7 months, which has been a long 7 months. But it's crazy. The need in our community is, it's not slowing down. Really, we focus on food insecurity, and about 95% of the people who come through are truly just coming for food. But what we've seen over the past 2 years really is the need for rental assistance, rent utility specifically. And we were able to help out there, and we are serving about 500 people on site every single week. We're putting out about 200,000 pounds of food on site every week, but then we go off site as well to about 17 different communities and double that. So we'll probably hit around 4.5 million pounds of food given out to the community this year. And, the fundraising side to that, there's, art is absolutely important. Our education is super important. But I kind of felt like if I'm going to be fundraising for millions of dollars every year, let's put that to something I'm really passionate about.
And you guys so can you tell us a little bit about Family Service, what you guys do, the different things you have on your newer campus?
Yeah, well, again, for a development director, capital campaigns are tough. They just are. If anybody who's going through a capital campaign right now, I feel for you, because I know what what goes into it. And luckily, I got to come on after a capital campaign was finished. We took a building, which was the old Intermountain Distributing Building, and more than quadrupled, or 10 times the size of the space that we had at the old location. And now we have a thrift store on site as well. So it's really a campus. We have a thrift store on site. We have now almost 40 employees. When I started, we had 26.
Wow. And growing really quickly.
Yeah, the growth is crazy, but the need is absolutely there. We provide anything from, like I said, food assistance for food insecurity, rental assistance, utility assistance. We do backpacks. Actually, we just had my development director was on with Hot 1019 today talking about our backpack program, which is a one-off, for kids going back to school. We provide about 1,000 backpacks and school supplies for kids in need. We have scholarshiping opportunities for individuals who are seeking better employment. We have vision assistance. The thrift store, we have about 200,000 sold items a year, which is a crazy number to say that out loud. And all of the dollars go directly back into our programs. We do food outreach as far east as Miles City. We go to Roundup, we go to Red Lodge, Bridger, Fromberg, Lavina. We partner with all these communities who don't have food banks. There's so much need in this state, and we're lucky to have partners like Albertsons and Walmart and Sam's Club and Cisco and all these places who donate food to us so that we can make sure it gets into the hands of those who need it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And the need is absolutely there. There's no illusions to what's going on right now. The times have been tough, and specifically with rent. I mean, we've all seen it go up.
Absolutely.
That's where we can
an
absolutely
inventory of things
for
that
sure
are affordable.
So if we can help cover a bill, our goal is to really help people be sustainable. It's not offering a handout, it's a hand up. So if we can cover one bill per month where, you have to decide, am I going to pay my car insurance, or am I going to buy food, or am I going to be able to pay for health insurance? Well, if I can feed you every single week, grocery bills are crazy right now. So, potentially save you $1,000 a month just to come in. And we don't ask any guideline questions. We need to know for our granting purposes. But if you make $1 million, if you make $1, it does not matter. Come in, and we'll make sure that you can leave with whatever your family needs for the week.
Yeah, and your facility is so easy too. We toured it, I think right after the new one opened, and it was just really cool to see like the nice drop off for the thrift store, and then just like where people can come in and get food. It kind of feels like a little grocery store.
Yeah, they can shop and then take some of that embarrassment out that I feel like.
The whole idea kind of behind it is the dignity side to it, right? Where, a lot of times you think, oh, I'm getting a food box, I'm getting canned food, leftovers, and that's so not. There's a stigma behind people who are in need, and it sucks because it's there, but it shouldn't be. And anybody can go through this. And in the past year, we really tried to emphasize that it could be you, it could be your neighbor, it could be your kids, friends, because anybody at any time can wind up. You're one bill away sometimes. I mean, there was a statistic that was pulled within the past 3 to 5 years where it was like 70% of Montana, if presented with a $1,000 bill, they could not cover it. So that stigma needs to be erased. You need to be able to come for help when you need it, because we've all been there. Within our, it's called client choice, and it's literally client choice. I don't give you a box and say, this is what you're taking home with you. Any given day, there's going to be different food. So we do have canned food, and we do have boxed food, but at the same time, we have fresh produce every single day. We have dairy every single day. We have meat every single day. We have so many partners and ranchers and farmers who want to assist us with this. So you might go down there and see literally like tri-tip or prime rib. We have fish, we have shrimp today. And there's no limit. We just weigh it. So our inventory is based on how much weight comes in and weight goes out. And if you have a family of 5, I don't, expect your box to be the same as somebody who's just a single person. So we absolutely make sure that the dignity is met in such a positive way. And then, you're exactly right. With the thrift store, one of the things we really are different than others is that you don't even have to get out of your car. You can pull straight through a drive-through. We'll have our staff meet you there, take it off. If you need a receipt, we'll write it. If not, zip on through. And we're busy in there. I mean, they're busy from 9 o'clock until 5 o'clock.
It is quite, I just toured it with Leadership Billings, and what an operation to sort through the donations. And they were like, you kind of go through that area where you don't even have to get out of your car. And they're like, this gets, sorted every day. And so all of this stuff is moved. So then the next day I was like, that is a lot of stuff to be moving and grooving out of this area every day.
It's a whole process. I mean, I worked with my dad being with Albertsons. I worked literally at every grocery store. Albertsons and Billings and in Missoula. And you have an inventory. You've got a scan code. You know what goes on the shelf and where it goes, but you have no idea what's coming in any day. And we don't have a scan inventory. So the people that are in the drive-through, they're doing things that I don't even comprehend. They're making sure, can this be salvageable? If not, we put it to recycling. If it can't be recycled, we do everything we can to keep it out of the trash. So we actually, we'll recycle metals, we recycle fabric, and we get paid for that. So we put that right back into the program. If it's TV that doesn't work, we can strip wires out of that. We can strip copper. So we will salvage everything we can. We have a new place here in Billings. It's I think it's called the break room, the riot room. If you guys,
yes.
So I'm sorry what the name is. I'm not coming to it, but we can donate TVs and glass and mirrors that are broken, and people literally go there and they shatter.
Which is
things.
nice.
To shatter things.
Yeah. So we keep pretty much everything out of the garbage. Once it's something that we know is quality to go to the floor, it goes to a pricing and sorting area, and then they sort everything based on color. They know Monday's red and Tuesday's green, and they know how to shift everything off the floor. So we keep new items on the floor every single day, which is cool, and it does really well. I think it's the best thrift store in Billings, and I think it's reasonably priced, and all the dollars go directly back into food programs.
Which is really nice because it's like you're just getting donated items and they come in, you make some money off of that to go back into the program. Amazing.
I want to bring up something that we don't have listed, but you do freeze-dried candies.
We do freeze-dried food, actually.
Freeze-dried food.
Yeah, this is one, people used to say we're the best kept secret in Billings, and I actually hate that because I want people to know about what we do. If you're in need, please come get something. Please come talk to us. If it's rent, utility, or food, come do that. And if you want to donate, do that. I don't want to be a secret, but truly the freeze-dried piece, this has been for 3 years now. There's so many companies now that are doing this. But I do want to say I think we're the first in Billings. So it came out of the pandemic. We were realizing how many people were on the street and were carrying literal cans of food. And if you got
that's heavy
for sure. And there's these things called number 10 cans. If you see like the massive can,
Yes.
That's what a number 10 can is. So imagine carrying 10-pound can in your backpack, and you got to find a can opener to get that out. So what sprung from this is my predecessor, her son was really interested in freeze-dried food. And we learned that you maintain like 95% of the nutrients from the food that is freeze-dried. But it also takes like 10 pounds down to, ounces. So we started dabbling with fruit and vegetables. Fruit's awesome. The sugars stay in there, so you can eat it. It's crunchy. It tastes like astronaut ice cream to me. The vegetables are not so good dry, but if you rehydrate them by literally just putting a little bit of water in, it goes back to its original state within the span of minutes. And when I first started, my wife...
Kind of like a ramen cup. Where it has like the peas in it.
For sure. That's if you think about it that way, and it would be crunchy. We've tried like pork and beans. We've they're not all winners by all means. They're pretty
It's like a fun little
and the cool thing about this is it comes full circle. So we recycle all the cans that are used. We partner with a program where adults with developmental delays will work on site with us. So we're offering jobs. We have Habtechs that then work with them. So we've created jobs for individuals who may not be able to go find some other positions where they want, and they're choosing to have this job. A lot of places, I have a background working with individuals with developmental delays, and there's not always the most dignified job.
Yeah.
And this is something that's fun. So at the end of the week, they were choosing like, hey, I want to try this. So we tried pizza. We then went to candy, and turns out candy's awesome. It totally changes the structure. Skittles are like, it's not chewy. It pops in your mouth. So now we've got contracts with other places. So Art House Babcock have a contract with us, and they do candy. We do Charleston Chews. We do Skittles. We do Biddo Honeys.
I love Biddo Honeys.
And we've got friends who are like, these are crazy good. So you can find them now at Ganans. We have them at Art House Babcock, Base Camp. So anything that we sell on this then goes directly back into our programs as well. But it's one of the things we don't always advertise is the freeze-dried food.
That's really fun. We should get some and try it. Kayla and Marcell try.
Yeah, I should have brought some today.
No, we'll come down and try it.
I've got to ask, what is the biggest success, like surprising? You're like, oh, I'm so surprised. And then what was the one you were like, no.
I would say my favorite of all time that we did was mandarin oranges. Ooh. And we don't do those anymore because you have to maintain that all of them are you're changing the molecular structure of food. So, we have to have somebody write off on this, and Riverstone's that. And then we go through another program that writes off on that the food is okay to be sold. Mandarins don't always dry out the right way, so they get a little bit chewy. So we don't risk anything that could harm somebody. So we did this massive batch at the beginning, and all of our staff were eating them, and I was putting them on top of like Asian salads, like a crouton.
Yeah.
That was my favorite. And I think they would have been the most successful if we could guarantee that those were always going to maintain the same. the candy side, I wouldn't say that's the biggest surprise because it's kind of just like, candy's going to sell. Bitto Honey and Charleston Chews. We've got a couple of board members who say that every time they're at Babcock, they always get Charleston Chews. The worst is like pork and beans because it genuinely is. It tastes like dirt. It's that like texture, but if you put water back into it, it tastes just like pork and beans. But those would be kind of the two that I'd be like, yeah, these are definite outliers.
Rehydrate the beans
and the vegetables.
Don't
For sure.
Yeah.
Always rehydrate the vegetables because it's not sweet. There's no sugar to it. So
that's really cool. So we know it's been fun talking to you about family service, but what about some of those things? I know you travel a lot and you did some other things prior to coming back to Billings or once you got to Billings. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, when I got back to Billings, like I said, my background really has been working with children specifically with developmental delay. So autism specifically, I've loved working with this group of people. Aware was where I started, and now I'm actually the board president for a company here called Step, doing wonderful things for the community. And I've kind of always wanted to be that voice for those who can't be heard. Mm-hmm. When I was working in college, I worked as a hab tech with children with developmental delays, and it's something that I don't think I'll ever not want to do. CASA is another program that I had worked with, like I mentioned, and kids that are removed from their home due to abuse and neglect and being that voice in a courtroom for them. So I've kind of been all over the place in nonprofit. But my wife and I have kind of always had that passion. We don't have children, so we've kind of always said, like, well, can we do something to affect change here in the community? Those are the things that I've done, besides the museum. But the travel side is a massive passion for ours, and we always kind of talk about what is our passion, what is our purpose, why are we here, what are we doing, and those are the passion and the purpose is working with people. But passion, we love travel. We've kind of gone a little bit everywhere. I lived in Thailand for a brief period of time after college, teaching at an English program in Bangkok. And my wife and I actually met online. So it was our first date. And I thought it was really cool because I had traveled quite a bit. And I can always like, oh, yeah, I lived in Bangkok.
Which is so cool and unique.
Well, she hit me with I lived in South Africa and I lived in Colombia. And I was like, okay, well, it's not that impressive.
It's not impressive.
So
it's not a competition.
No, but it very much have you been to Mexico? Have you been here? Have you been here? And now we've really kind of made that a mission of ours to travel as much as we can. We've been very lucky. We've traveled to Europe pretty much annually since since about 2017. We've done Italy twice. We've spent about 3 weeks now in Italy. We've spent some time in Portugal, Paris, Amsterdam. We are going to go to London and Brussels and Luxembourg here in a couple of months. My aunt is a historian, and we can track our family roots back to like the 1400s.
Wow.
And this little town called Sandweiler, Luxembourg is where my grandfather's family came from. So we're going to get on bikes in Luxembourg City and ride into the town and see if we can find anything about our family. But travel, I think, when I was in Thailand, it really kind of opened me up to the idea that the world's really big and Billings is really small. And it really changed, I think, just my outlook on life and realizing that, you are not the only thing that matters. And it's since then really kind of made me look at, how do I try to create change? Such a weird, sappy way to put it, but we've just got this wanderlust now and opening ourselves up to different cultures. And food then came from that. I've always been a foodie, I guess I'd say.
I know, that's why I'm like
trying to get food's coming out.
Oh my God, we should hang out more.
I'm up from a family of 3 boys. My brothers are basketball players. My dad was their coach. I wrestled. So same time, my mom drugged me all over the state. So I got to spend a ton of time with my mom, and my mom was the chef of the house. So I started getting really interested in cooking when I was young and wanting to cook for the family. And the first time I can really remember distinctly, I was making like a cherry or apple turnover for breakfast. Mm-hmm. And since then, I feel like I've just wanted to cook. If I could go back in time and do it all over again, I would love to go to culinary school. I've become obsessed with cooking shows. I'm starting to get really close with a lot of chefs here in Billings because I want to know the process. Last night we were at Walker's and actually sat right in front of where they're cooking. And just
awesome.
We love Walker's.
Nick and John are just the best people in general, but we become food obsessed. It's kind of all I want to do. It's, where a lot of people, they go to the gym. which you should, or drink wine, which, yeah, you should. It's my way to relax, truly is cooking. I love going home and cooking. It really is a stress reliever for me, but it's now kind of come down to the science of it. How are you doing this and why are you doing this? But then also, like, I'm so obsessed with just junk food, like going to a gas station. Like, I know where the best chicken strips are. And I'm so like, there's no discrimination when it comes to food for me. But obviously that's kind of, it started working into, I wanted to find a blog in Billings. And like 4 years ago, I was looking, is anyone writing about food in Billings? And there were people that were writing little articles.
Or it's more like tourism based.
Yeah.
Some of them, or they
and even like Billings 365,
yeah.
There were people that were plugging like, hey, here's a brunch that you should eat. But there was no really concise breakdown of food that was regularly running. So kind of really more for me just to test more food and really just to kind of some clarity and write and have some time to write. My wife said, kind of during 2020, well, why don't you start writing about these? So I had done like 3 or 4 of them. They weren't great. I had my brother-in-law look through some of them and edited them. And I was looking at how do you create a blog, and I have no idea how to create a blog. I wasn't going to be the guy in the back end to start writing this. And Marcell had sent a message over and was like, hey, do you want to write for the Better Off in Billings, just kind of something about some food? You asked like 10 questions. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, I'll do you one better. I've got like 6 blogs ready to go.
I've got them queued up.
I will continue to write
This will force me to go eat and
Which
write.
has been so great, though, because you're the one that's, with the Better Off in Billings Ambassadors, they're all great. They have different things that they're interested in, but yours are so consistent on different food topics, and they're so fun to read. Like the pizza, the beer, because I need to do a better job marketing it is why. But they're so fun, and because it highlights all the local things within Billings.
I love
from Ryan's perspective.
And the thing too about this, like everybody who's a food writer, everyone who's a food blogger, at the end of the day, like it's how do you make this a job and how do you get paid to do this? At the end of my day, it really is like, I don't want to get paid to do this because I want to write about the places that I want to go eat at. And if you have an agenda and someone's paying you, like you need to go write about this specific place. And from day one, this was never about grading food. It was never, hey, I'm giving this 2 thumbs up and, oh, don't eat at this place because like I want Billings to succeed. I don't want to write a negative article about a place that I had a bad time at because someone in Billings is going to like it. In the very first blog that we had written, it's in reference to my brother-in-law, and he's like, I know a guy who would give it 3 thumbs up out of a possible 2 to Who Hot. It's his favorite restaurant. So if I said something negative about that, like he would say something positive about it. So I never wanted it to be about, judging. It was me just saying, here are my favorite places and here's who I think I'd like to write about. Yeah. So that's been fun. It's also kind of created a little bit of, well, I've heard this place is good and I can't say what I think the best is if I haven't tried it. So it's kind of gotten us to open up our eyes a little bit to places that maybe we don't go to. Like I don't go to the Heights that often. I live downtown. I don't have work in the Heights. But there are places in the Heights that are absolutely worth the trip to go eat at, and they don't always get talked about because it's not the sexy downtown scene.
Or the new shiny
I will tell
West
you,
End.
Yeah, exactly.
The Play-In has a really good roasted. Was it roasted chicken?
Yeah, and I've heard. I'm doing a write up right now. Like it's on the list for best bar foods.
Yeah,
and that's on my check. Like I got to go out there and try this food.
Yeah, their roasted chicken's delicious,
which is good to know. I mean, sometimes like a good fry too, and like a dingy kind of.
Oh, for sure.
Place.
Like I love going to dive bars.
God.
Like, I absolutely love dive bar food.
Mm-hmm.
It's been fun to do that, and we've kind of taken it all over the map. From hey, here's where you should go on a date night, to here's the best Mexican in my opinion, and to breweries. We really wanted to do breweries during the summer period, and now I'm already starting to look at how would we talk about the holiday foods. And what's really crept up on me is when I kind of set a goal to do one every 2 weeks. And we knocked out like the first 8, and now I'm like, oh, I do have a full-time job, and I'm on boards, and
I'm kind of busy.
It's been this challenge, like, oh, I have a deadline in my mind, like Marcell's not cracking the whip and saying you have to get this in. It's me in my own mind saying I really do have to get this in, which forces me to go try food.
But I think people are looking like they want to know it from a local's perspective. I think we all know when we travel, we're looking for that local site, whether it's the tourism site or even the more local things from local people that you're like, oh, they really liked this. We should try this. Because I think when you're traveling or new somewhere, or maybe a resident and you don't get out a ton, it's nice to know what's new or what's really good from someone else's perspective that you're like, oh, I would trust their judgment. Like,
yeah,
I'll
that's
try
again,
it.
it goes back to like that very first write up when it was kind of explaining why am I doing this, and it really kind of does double down on that, where it's, you know, I'm lucky to be, you know, part of a dual income, no kids. So we do get to go out all the time. Like we eat out 3-4 times a week. So that perspective for parents who do have multiple kids and they get like one crack at this a month. And if they haven't tried that new place, it is kind of worthwhile for them to know, like, what did someone say about it? And again, if it's negative, I don't want to write that. But if it was positive, I really want to emphasize it. And really, I've tried to give here's my recommendation on what to eat. Obviously, everybody's going to have their own taste buds. But when I travel, I usually ask, like, hey, what would you order here? And typically, you know, the waiter's going to say, this is my favorite. But it's always funny when you ask that in a different country, because they're usually like, well, I don't know what you like. I mean, my perspective would be different. And I want theirs so bad, because if we're traveling, like, I genuinely hate fish. I like seafood, but I hate fish. They're going to say, oh, we'll try the sardines. I don't want to try that, but I want to hear you do it. You would say that, and I want to step out of my comfort zone. So I think that's kind of been the emphasis, is trying to get people to try to step out of their comfort zones. And like you mentioned, you know, if you're on the West End, you kind of stay in the West End. If you're downtown, you kind of stay downtown. But maybe this is the push that you needed to go try. You know, Cork and Barrel's new. They're on the West End, and have you heard about them? Oh, you haven't? Well, you should try this sandwich.
Just go try it.
Yeah, Copper Onions. You know, the new place on West End. Have you tried it yet? I haven't. Well, I haven't. You should try this. Or you never heard of Latinga? Oh my God, it's a gem downtown.
Good.
Go find
burritos.
Latinga. Yeah.
But I think finding that, like, sometimes I feel like someone else will order, like, we'll be at the same place and I like what they order better than what I order. So like just having that decision made, yeah, I'll just try this and it'll be great and I'll try it and probably really like it.
And it's nice for me too, because I have like the best food companion in my wife, because we both love food. Like, we're highly motivated by food. So
Same, I mean.
I would describe myself the same way.
So when we go out, it's usually, we've realized a couple years ago that, you know, what's normal is you order your meal and you know, the other orders theirs. We order like 5 things. It's become such a, like, it's an embarrassing problem where I'm like, oh, okay, well, clearly we're getting an appetizer, we're going to get a soup, and you're going to get an entree, and I'm going to get an entree. But we really wanted to try that entree too. So clearly we're getting all 3.
And dessert, don't forget. And we're sharing it in probably to-go boxes, but it's fine.
And it's all for science, right? It's all for the listener, so they can know what's
Absolutely.
ordered. So yeah, it's been really fun. I'm hoping to try to do this for the rest of the year. It's become kind of a challenge, but at the same time, it's super fun. I mean, even just upstairs, like Sweetwater just opened.
I know.
I mean, I have to go try this. I have to go try this place.
Her fun. Fresh pasta is great.
I'll take it home, cook it.
I
so
did it
good.
literally on Sunday. She had a pasta. I had fresh peas at home, and I was like, I'm going to make an OG like pasta. I did some guanciale and some peas, and did it in just a really nice summer pasta. Yeah.
Oh, that's not, I have peas, and you're making me think of peas from the farmer's market. I could use
exactly
those, buy
where
pasta.
I got it too. And that's kind of become our thing too. Like with the farmer's market, we've really tried to eat locally. And this actually kind of stemmed years ago why we were doing this. We wanted to know where we were buying our food from. So we got really close with the food hub. We started,
Valley Food Hub.
which plug for them. If you guys don't know about Yellowstone Valley Food Hub, like, get to know your farmers, get to know who's growing your vegetables. We found a lamb lady, and we had a bacon person, and we had a duck egg person, and it was weekly. We were getting this, and we loved knowing that our meat was coming from Ekalaka, or knowing that it was from Forsyth. And we fell in love with that idea. So then it kind of started expanding. We were writing and taking photos of the food that I was cooking, and, like, you know, hashtag like know your farmer. And then it started kind of growing into like, well, stop eating at chain restaurants and know who your chef is, and know your wait staff. And there are so many great places in Billings. I've always like plugged for Missoula because I thought they had the food scene, and we go there a lot. And I've realized in the past couple of years, like, Billings food scene, I think, has blown up.
Yeah,
it's
there's
really
no
good.
hyperbole to that at all. I think that there's some chefs here that are doing incredible things. I feel like there's chefs that are kind of challenging each other as well. And it's been fun to watch that. But
it's also, one thing I'll say too is it's a super healthy community.
Yeah.
They all support one another. There's not this, oh, you're doing that and I'm doing that and now we hate each other.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, hey, you know, that's great. Your salsa is actually better than mine. Like, let me buy your salsa. Like, you know, so it's really crazy and fun to see how healthy that
One of my
community
favorite
is.
things to see is when a chef is at another restaurant for breakfast. Like that's the big thing. Cause like breakfast, if I don't know if like you guys know this, but everyone hates cooking breakfast, like in the food industry.
That's interesting because like brunch is one of my favorite things. On a weekend, I'm like brunch because I want a savory and a sweet.
Yeah,
coffee, mimosa.
I'm pretty sure I can't swear on this, but there's
it's fine.
You can. We just mark your episode.
There's a like Anthony Bourdain's very first book, really kind of exposed the brunch industry, and I didn't know that either because I love brunch. But yeah, if you talk to a chef, if you talk to a wait staff, brunch is the worst. And Anthony Bourdain writes about it all the time as like this just putrid suck hole where like it warns you what not to eat, and wait staff will tell you like per capita across the country, wait staff get paid less during brunch hours, and they cook so many different things, right? So you got eggs, you can make that 10 different ways.
And it all cooks at different times, and then you're like timing it with the toast so it's warm.
Yeah. I love seeing chefs at restaurants during breakfast because they've made the emphasis like that place serves a legit breakfast, and they respect it because they know that chef's back there cranking out good food. But yeah, I love it even like because you're never going to see a chef at another place on a Friday night, so it's cool to be able to talk to them in those moments to be like, what do you get here? And then when I'm just at the restaurant, you're like, hey, where would you recommend besides this place? Like, what would you eat? And you can take that.
And what would you get?
Yeah, and then typically you can take that to the bank, right? It's funny though too. Like unanimously, I find out that chefs typically like they never cook at home because it's your job. Like I don't want to go home and fundraise at home, so it's like it's typically like, oh man, you'll talk about the best pizza, and someone will be like, oh dude, Domino's, like Wendy's is so good.
Just get it.
And it's funny because typically like that's the response that I get a lot from the people in the food industry. But I totally get that. As much as I can write about being like a total snob for food, at the end of the day, like, yeah, dude, I'll crush some Hardee's. Like I'll stop at a gas station every time on the way to Missoula and load up on fried food. That's like my biggest guilty pleasure is horrible gas station food.
Yeah, that's really funny. I have some family that could relate to that.
Yeah, 100%.
When traveling with and there's something good about a good chicken strip.
Yeah.
I mean, like I think of like small town bars being from one, and it's like, they're like frying, like it's Cisco,
like the grease has not been changed one time in 30
and
years.
I'm eating it and enjoying it. And those stupid little corn nugget things.
I'm going to say the most unpopular opinion in the world.
You don't like ranch?
I'll say two unpopular things. I don't like ranch, and I don't like chicken strips.
Kayla,
it's the breading on them that
just
gets me, and I feel so bad about it. They look good, but I just
genuinely
don't like
might be
them.
the first person I've ever heard say that.
Yeah. My boyfriend is just concerned for me all the time.
What about the pretzel? Like we'll do a pretzel one sometimes, like with Dots pretzels because of the extra salt.
So
They're
I probably
good.
would like that. There's just I find traditional bread like chicken strips, they just have this thick breading on them, and I just
that's why you got to read a blog and know where to go get the best chicken strip.
Exactly.
So
it's like it's been fun to kind of go through this and try to figure out who's doing, in my mind, like the best. And then when new places are popping up, there's new stuff popping up, and like you said, there's healthy competition. And I think that a lot of this community is very healthy with how they support one another.
Absolutely.
I don't, like I said, the whole emphasis on my blog was never to shit on someone else. It was to really promote who I think was doing a great job. And I do think for the most part, most of the industry here in Billings really promotes one another.
Absolutely.
We were lucky. We've had like 4 or 5 chefs in Billings get nominated for a James Beard. We have,
which is huge.
Yeah. I mean, even, Nick didn't get nominated for it this year, but Nick over at Walker's has a nomination. Veronica's had a nomination this year.
Yep.
The Back Porch and Roundup had one this year. And if you guys have not been out to Roundup to try that,
it's good.
Do it. Prerogative's another one, an hour away in Red Lodge, is 2
also
years
delicious.
in a row that have had the nominations.
Their sticky toffee
folks
pudding.
over at Enzo, they've had a nomination. So people don't realize that, I don't think, and I know that it's
they don't realize what it is and like how how big of a deal it is to get that.
I say that, and
huge.
I always have to explain it to people. Like, it's the Academy Award nomination of food for that year.
Yeah.
And as much as you want to turn your nose up at it sometime, be like, oh, well, that's, it's high-end food. Like, half the time it's not. Veronica's is bakery, and it is fantastic, and it's accessible, and it's not expensive. There are places that are, last year, Marble Table had a nomination last year as well.
And right now, Jason
he's up as a semi-finalist.
For also with Taste of Home.
Yeah, for sure. He could land himself on the front page of this. There's so many cool places, and I would never, this isn't a negative thing at all. I would never label the Marble Table as like, put your nose up in the air. I think it's home. It's comfort food, and it's home.
And it's every consistent, delicious
for sure.
every single time.
So I think
comfort
that's
food,
for sure. there are so many places in this community that you could go get a fantastic meal at, and that we're just not realizing. I think my goal, and like the last thing I would ever say about it, is that I just don't want people to go eat at chain restaurants. And there's nothing wrong, because there are like a lot of the restaurants here that are chain are locally owned, and they are franchised, and they're doing what's, they got to eat too, right? They got to make ends meet. And a lot of these places do fantastic. All I kind of mean by that when I tell people about it is that there are people who are from Billings who are kind of living out their dream as a chef or as a restaurant owner who are just not chain. And they're doing something that's different, and they're cooking from the heart really, really hard. And a lot of them are finding food at the farmer's market, and they are cooking what is local, and they're sourcing from somebody in Ekalaka. They know where they're getting this from. I mean, one of the biggest downfalls for a place like Fieldhouse, it just went under, which is so depressing, is that I don't think people always like heard that name, right? They're on Minnesota Avenue, and they're not always advertising because they are putting their money into the food. And it's a bummer, because someone will then go line up for 2.5 hours at Chick-fil-A. And that's like the most disheartening thing, because you can go get a chicken sandwich from somewhere so much better that is someone that, personally. And it's not, it's not putting money in the pockets of a massive corporation. So I love the idea of eating local. I love the idea of knowing where it comes from. I love the idea of just really, really putting the emphasis on your home community and supporting those people. But at the end of the day, I've been plugging Domino's and Hardee's as well at the same time.
I love a good curly fry. So that kind of gets us onto another question I have for you, or just some other things about Billings, like having grown up here for most of your upbringing, moving a little bit, going to college out of Billings, traveling a lot. And what keeps you coming back? Like, what are some things about Billings that you just, it is home for you? I mean, obviously your family's here, but what are some of those other things that keep you here?
Yeah, the family first. I'm very lucky that I have a brother and his wife and his 4 kids here. I have my parents here. So obviously, and then my family's originally from Miles City, so we're close to aunts and uncles and grandparents when I had moved back. Leaving Missoula was a really tough choice. I love Missoula, and we kind of use that as like our Vegas, right? We go to every home football game. We go to as many concerts at Kettle House as we can.
They've had a good lineup this year.
Oh God, the Kettle House is, I mean, I could go off on a tangent for so long about what Nick Tricona is doing over at Kettle House. It's crazy. I want that to happen in Billings so bad. And that would be an emphasis on like, why would you stay in Billings? Well, if that was here, that'd be another huge emphasis. But the boomerang back here, obviously family first, but we talked about jobs. I mean, you can get a great job in Billings. I had a similar job open up when I was at the museum, the exact same, the Yellowstone Art Museum. There was a job that opened up at the MAM, the Missoula Art Museum. It was the same job. It was half the pay. And Missoula is like twice the cost of living. So when you look at these opportunities that you get in Billings, they don't always exist in other cities. We know we're facing a massive housing crisis and shortage in Billings, but we weren't when I came back here. And it's crazy to throw the number on it. When I bought my first house, I think I bought it for $135,000, and it was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, which in Missoula, that would have been triple that cost.
And now it would even be.
Yeah, I actually just saw it sell a couple months ago. It sold, and I was like, "Oh, that's not what we bought it for." But the opportunities were there, and I think that they still exist here. Most people tend to move for jobs or for family, and then they end up staying. I think because of the arts and the culture and the opportunities and the schools. We were just talking about the grade that Billings got for green space. And it's funny because I never think about that. I never think about, oh, there's so many parks. But then when I started thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I could walk to a park in literally 2 minutes. You can be on a trail to hike if you want to hike in minutes. You can fish within 10 minutes. These aren't things that I do. I know that people want to do that, though, and it is a huge emphasis for why they go to places. But then if you start breaking it down into my world and we get into the arts and the culture side to it, Alberta Bear is a top tier theater. I mean, their lineup this year, you want to talk about lineups of what Kettle House brought in. We have tickets to see all 4 of the Broadway shows, and we are thrilled about seeing them. Last year, I saw one of the best plays I've ever seen in my life. The iteration of There's two of them mainly, but Fiddler on a Roof was one of the best things that I saw last year. I was so thrilled with the production that they brought in. And since they've remodeled that space,
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
it is
It's
honestly
stunning.
It's regionally, not just Montana, like regionally, that's one of the best theaters that we have. The symphony that we have here is world-class symphony. We've been extremely lucky to have who we have, the performers. And then you start tearing down into the smaller subsidiaries to that. I mean, you've got Pub Station. They are working their asses off.
Yeah.
Pub Station is bringing in not just country, because that's typically what we get, country and hard rock, but they are bringing in acts that are, I would say, way more alternative. There's a rapper named Prof that is a guy that I really like, and he's brought him in twice. We've seen some shows here that I don't feel like I have any business seeing in Billings over at Pub Station. Very small, intimate crowds, because Billings doesn't necessarily know who some of these bands are.
Yeah, and then there'll be, I feel like the Pub Station too, country, and just some other ones too, they've had artists that are now like more Chris Stapleton.
Chris Stapleton played here
for example,
like 25 people the year that he wins his Grammy.
Yeah, and now look at it's just crazy. And it seems like they're doing some other events too that are, for certain music crowds. Like they had emo night, and then I feel like they did something with Taylor Swift, like a Taylor Swift something.
I went to emo night and I went so hard. It was like me going back to when I was 18.
Right, like it's like
awesome.
nostalgia. So it's
and the
fun.
emo night story, like how that all founded, is crazy in general, and what they do in these massive cities. So it was packed in Billings. Like I thought like maybe there'd be like 20 people at this thing. No, it was kids that they were the emo
packed.
kids like me, and they were like, no, this wasn't a phase. I'm showing you. Like I'm going to do it. It was super fun. But and then last but certainly not least, another reason why I love staying here is I'm on the board with Art House Babcock, and I think what they've done is again like world class with what we're doing for art house cinema. They've had this idea to bring in movies that otherwise wouldn't get shown. The big boxes don't show them. But I'm probably snobbier when it comes to movies than I am with food. We always debate this in my house. Like, what's Ryan a bigger snob with? Is it food? Is it music? Is it movies? And I think my wife goes around in a circle. It kind of depends on the time.
Depends on the season.
Depends on the time of the year. Exactly. But what they've done over there is incredible, especially during a pandemic, where so many places were going under. Matt Blakesley was like, wow, what if we brought in Nostalgia Night? And what if we brought in, we could go down the list of what he's done that's cool. Garbage Pail is like one of my favorite things they did, where they brought in like the worst movies of all time. And they encourage you
Reminds
to like.
me of the Garbage Pail Kids.
It's exactly right. Yeah. And they had a local artist design all of it. It was kind of reminiscent of that, but like they want you to jeer it. They want you to boo. It was fun. And they've kept afloat during all this and funded an entire capital campaign for what the new art house cinema is going to be. And they're really close. Luckily, being on the board, I can go see it. They're going to bring in a chef. I don't think I'm allowed to even say who it's going to be yet, but they're going to bring in one of the better chefs in our entire state to cook at this place, where you can go have a meal and then go to a movie. And one of the gripes that we always have, Holly and I, is that when we go to a movie, Billings closes down early. There's not always a restaurant to go to. So we always have to rush before, and I don't always want to stuff my face and then go sit down.
Because I want room for popcorn.
100%.
And candy.
Because you're not going to talk me out. Yeah.
And their popcorn is outstanding.
And they serve drinks at it. So
Yeah.
and it's not like I'm going to have one flathead cherry. I'm going to have multiple.
And popcorn.
Yeah, and popcorn.
And
so
some
it's going to be from Family Service. No, to be able to go eat after that is going to be fantastic. And it's going to be another restaurant
and a new experience. Yeah. And the sign itself is stunning, but just like a new experience that you can experience all year long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what kind of rolls all that back into it, right? The question is, what keeps you here? When we were just speaking with the new students at the new school here, I had said to one of them, what's kept me here is you can find something that fits you in Billings. And that's not, I don't think, always true for every community. So I don't care where you lean politically. I don't care where you lean socially. You can find the place for you here. And I think Montanans tend to kind of leave each other alone. If you fall way far left, I don't think I at least don't feel like I get harassed for my political beliefs. I don't feel like I'm going to go do that to someone else. I feel like you can go find something where you socially fit in. Kirk's Grocery is like this perfect example of that. Another reason why I think it's just such a cool experience here in Billings. Shane and Mary have created not just a gallery in Billings, which is fantastic gallery, but they have music every single night. And they have a chef that is partnering with them. Ashley Woodward is one of the best chefs, best kept secrets in this entire city. And she's doing a pop-up restaurant there once a month. If you guys have not heard of what I'm talking about.
Is that the one that caters to you
Kitchen
sometimes?
Party, yeah. So if you've seen any of my catering photos, that's also Ashley. But Kitchen Party, this idea of community is why she really started this. And it's pay what you can. So if you can't afford to have the dinner, that shouldn't stop you is kind of their emphasis. Family Service has partnered with them in the past to help out with some of the food costs so that they can ensure that they can create these meals. And it's always a 3-course meal. She always is a vegetarian, so there's no allergies or anything like that, or no nuts or anything. But she's creating some of the best meals that I've ever had in this community with no meat and basically with no cost. So, if you can throw $100 at them, awesome. If you can't throw anything, awesome. But they're creating an environment where you can go sit down next to, someone from the West End who's making 6 figures and a homeless person sitting right next to you. And I think that's where it comes again to this community, where I don't think it really matters who you are. I think you can find something for you in this community, and places like Kirk's and Art House and Babcock and the Yam and all these places that have come together to create a super cool cultural structure in Billings. I could plug the zoo. I haven't even done that yet. I mean, we have a fantastic zoo in this community.
It's the only one in the state.
Trying to figure out, what do you do in the summertime? And it's funny, I get these questions like, why do you stay here? What do you do in Billings? And I know historically you've always had like these super somber and down, like, oh, well, I don't know what you do in Billings. I feel like you have to go out of your way not to know what to do.
Right. And it's like, well, what do you like doing? Because then that'll help me better tell you some of the cool things to do. Last
week, my wife and I went to the opening of the new exhibit at the zoo. We went to the farmer's market, and in one day, we went to the farmer's market. We went to the Mexican Fiesta on the south side. It's been going for like 70 years. We went and had a martini at Doc Harper's, which is a fantastic martini. We went to Walker's and had dinner. We went to the museum. Now, again, we're a unique couple in the sense that we don't have kids and we can kind of fly by the seat of our pants.
But there's a lot of other people like you that don't have kids.
And we went to a baseball game 2 nights. I mean, we have one of the best baseball fields for this level in the country. And it's very affordable. I mean,
super
it's a
affordable.
$6 ticket, and like beer's $4, a hot dog's a couple bucks. I mean, when you put that on, the lens of a bigger city, it's not affordable. So I guess it kind of wraps all together. Like, Billings is affordable. There are things to do. There's great jobs. There's great houses, and a community, and I think a culture that genuinely cares. As sappy as that sounds, and I think some people would disagree with that sometimes, just some of the struggles that we've faced as a community. And I think we're trying. I think we're getting there. And I think we're happy to be here. I've been asked a couple of times, Harley and I going to stay? Is this where we want to be? And honestly, besides moving to Europe at this point, I don't think we would leave. I mean, I honestly think Montana specifically, but Billings is going to be our home forever, and until the pipe dream of moving to Europe
happens, which that's a different. Yeah, I get that all too well. I think, Montana's really special, and I think Billings is very special and growing. Ryan, it's been so much fun having you. So we're going to take a quick break for a sponsor message before we get back to our rapid fire questions.
Thank you to Big Sky Economic Development for supporting the Vault at 201 North Broadway. Big Sky Economic Development provides leadership and resources for business creation, expansion, retention, new business recruitment, and community development.
I'm going to start with the first question. What gets you going in the morning?
The literal answer is my dog. She pushes us. Like, she's got the crazy legs.
She's like ready.
I ran a couple of triathlons in the past few years, so I had to physically get up and go run. That was getting me out of bed in the morning. Now the honest answer is my job. I have a very important job, I think, to help feed this community and to clothe, furnish, fortify this community. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what drives me right now, is knowing that I am making a big difference in this community.
That's really nice.
What's one piece of advice that made a large impact on your life?
Large piece of advice probably came from my dad. Basically, it's a long story to this, and I won't do that. But I was bombing in school, totally bombing. And my dad essentially said, you can come to work at Albertsons for me for the rest of your life, or you can go back to school and kind of get your shit together. And since then, he's really kind of emphasized, and I went back to school and I got like straight A's the next couple of years. And it was really kind of the push where he was saying like, no one's going to do this for you. I mean, you have to do it for yourself. And then it really kind of made me realize that, yeah, I can do anything. And no one's going to make that happen for you. So kind of go out there and get it yourself. But there's about an hour-long conversation that we had about it. But it was really the idea that you can do anything, but you have to do it. We're not going to do it for you.
You have to be the one doing it.
Yeah.
You have to choose which road you're going. I love that. Okay, last one. What is something visitors, newcomers, Billings residents have to do when they're in Billings?
One thing that they have to do.
One thing that they have to do. And residents, we know that some people just maybe haven't heard or done.
I think it would be kind of time dependent. I would say go to a baseball game. Honestly, I go to a baseball game, get a local craft beer. I would argue get Street Fight from Angry Hanks, get a dealer dog, and stand in general admission.
Or a Stang burger.
A Stang burger, yeah, too. I'm such an old school, like, I want a hot dog.
I love a good hot dog.
Even fights me, like, not just to get the little kitty dog, because that to me is like, it's baseball, right? But I'd get a dealer dog, I'd get an Angry Hanks Street Fight, and I would stand in general admission because there's a cool standing area. I would even get seats and take the game in. I would say that probably in the summertime. In the wintertime, I would say, if available, go to a show at Alberta Bear. Obviously, again, that's going to be time dependent during the winter, but those are two things that I would no matter what do. And then eat some of the local food. I mean, I guess all year long. And if I had to really pick it, it's funny because Holly and we talked about this about a month ago. Like, what's the one meal you have to eat here? God, I'm going to give a plug for Walker's. Like, I would say go eat a dinner at Walker's. Order whatever is on special, and enjoy a craft cocktail in their bar. Like, honestly,
their cocktails are so good. Like, I've never had such a good dirty martini anywhere in town theirs is so good.
Yeah, there's so many plugs I could give for restaurants. But I just think that environment is like the best, especially for a newcomer or a traveler, right? So if you're traveling, you might be staying downtown. Mm-hmm. So if you're staying, especially right across the street, there's a hotel in Northern's in the back block of that. So super accessible. And I would definitely say go experience that, because you can also see, the lights of downtown and whatnot. But I will give one more plug though for the summertime. I'd say farmers market. I mean, if you're going to be here in the summertime on a Saturday and you got things to do and later on in the day, go to the farmers market. There's going to be food trucks, literally. Great coffee right there, and you can go get lost for about an hour or so and spend some time. Like, again, it's time dependent, but if it's not dependent, Walker's.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ryan. It's been so much fun having you. Where can people find you and connect with you?
So you can find me connection really at betteroffinbillings.com. That's one of the ways you can find me. Go to Ask a Local and you'll find me. Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, or you can reach me at work, familyservice.com. And I am under the leadership section.
Awesome. Well, it's been so much fun having you. Thank you for sharing your story with us on The Vault.
Yeah, thanks for talking food with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. You can find the resources and tools mentioned in today's episode at thevault201.com. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe and share with a friend. Thank you to the Small Business Development Center for sponsoring The Vault at 201 North Broadway. The Small Business Development Center provides free one-on-one counseling, business plan assistance, market research, financial projection assistance, and more to small businesses.